Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Joy McFarlane. I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at National Geographic Learning, US and Canada. And I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar today. So today we have Rob Jenkins and Staci Johnson, the authors of the Standout series. We're very excited to have them here with us today. And they will be presenting their presentation on effective ESL instruction using the 4Cs. Take it away, guys.
Thank you.
Can everyone hear us? I saw somebody said no sound. Just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Great. So it looks like we have 148 people here so far. I think it's going to grow. So exciting. You don't all need to type yes. It looks like we're good.
Joy, turn off your microphone, please. We're getting a lot of feedback. Okay.
Okay. Great. Hi, I'm Staci Johnson. This is Rob Jenkins. We are the co-authors of Standout, and we are both also ESL instructors. And one of our favorite things to do is to do teacher presentations. So we are going to get started with effective ESL instruction using the 4Cs. Okay, so first of all, we want you to think, why do we need educational standards? Why are educational standards important? If you guys can start typing in the chat box your ideas, we'll respond. Okay, I see to measure student progress, to guide instruction, so that learning can be measured evenly, to compare with what is expected, ensure that students learn content that can impact them later on in life, objective standards.
Yeah, sometimes we think about objectives. They're very important, and we need to always know why we're doing what we're doing. And so the standards will help us with that.
Okay, so you should see a quote up on your screen, and this is just talking about the importance of standards and they help us identify where our students are and how we can help them reach their goals.
So today we're going to talk a lot about standards. The 4Cs are within a particular standard, so we're going to give you some background to start as we get going here.
Okay, so here are the 4Cs in a quote: a focus on creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. And these 4Cs are essential to prepare students for the future. So we're going to spend some time and we are going to talk about the 4Cs, but we want you to think of a possible fifth C. This is something Rob and I kind of added to the mix. So go ahead and type in the chat box what you think the fifth C might be. Consistency, customization, choice, compassion, company. Julian's not sure. Coping, compassion. Think about things, your students in the classroom. Think about that for the fifth C. Cooperative learning, good one, but that's collaboration. So think something different. Comprehension, culture. Okay, great ideas. I don't think anyone has actually come up with the fifth C.
So this is a C that Staci and I, all of your answers are great. This is the C that Staci and I kind of think is one of the most important characteristics a student can come to and come with to class, and something that we want to instill in our students. And when they have it, they're great learners. Ready? Here we go.
One, the big reveal, confidence. Rob and I, when we first started working on Standout together, we decided that we needed a mission statement. And a mission statement would be something that we would think about whenever we walked into our classroom. And that was our guiding principle for how we would teach our students. And we used that same mission statement when we started writing our books, Stand Out, and that helped us guide everything we were writing.
That's right. And so we think that confidence can really help with that. Staci's going to talk a little bit about that mission statement now. This is our mission statement.
So this is our mission statement. Give students challenging opportunities to be successful in their language learning experience so they develop confidence and become lifelong learners. That confidence piece is so key because we really want our students to be able to learn outside of the classroom. We want them to keep learning. And so how do we give students that confidence in the classroom? We believe that we give students confidence by challenging them, by giving them activities that are I+1, things that are a little bit difficult for them, things that maybe they think they can't accomplish. And by the end of your class, when you show them that they can accomplish those things, that's where that confidence is really built.
So we're going to talk a little bit about these standards and how confidence can be added to them. So this is our 5th C, but we'll be talking about other things. But to begin with, we were talking about how standards can really change the way we look at teaching, and good standards encourages good teaching. So there's a couple things with the new standards. College and Career Readiness standards is one. Here in the United States, we have a lot of new standards. We have College and Career Readiness standards. We have English Language Proficiency standards. There's the 21st Century Skills, that really where the 4 C's come from. But there's a lot of different standards, and I think it's really important that we understand how these things fit together and how they work together. So here are a few things that we talk about as we talk about standards. One of the things that standards do is challenge our students. It used to be, now I've been around a long time, so I've been teaching a long time, and it used to be that we would nurture our students to the point where you kind of hold their hands through life. You help them through every little thing. You want them to be successful. So we didn't necessarily challenge them as much because we want to make sure that they had success. And but now we found that confidence comes when you have an opportunity to help the students to achieve something that's difficult. So challenge is really important. In the English Language Proficiency Standards, one of the things they talk a lot about is that we should be developing, we should be giving students an opportunity to be challenged, and students can do a lot more than what we think they can. And so that's really important. We should think about how we can help our students to grow. Another thing is learning over instruction. For years and years, it was always about, hey, I'm going to try to put this information into my students' heads. And so I'm just going to push, I got all this information, I'm going to push it in. I'm standing up in front of the class, listen to me, students. If you don't get it, it's your fault. But that's not the way these standards are written anymore. Standards are, the whole idea is that everything's about learning. How do people learn? How can we approach learning instead of just teaching? So learning really influences how we teach. So it's not like we come into class every day and teach exactly the same way. If I have a new class the next semester, I'm not going to teach exactly the same way because I have different students. What my students' needs are become more important. How they learn. Everybody learns in a different way, whether they have different learning styles and learning strategies, and they have different needs and different goals. So we really need to be thinking about how they learn to inform us on how we teach. So that's another reason that these standards are so important. Learning partnerships are also really important. It's no longer, the idea was for a long time, and I can say this about my class, I was teaching my ESL class, and as I'm teaching, I was thinking, okay, what can I do to help my student get out of class? In other words, to finish the class. Once they're finished, they weren't my problem anymore. I didn't have to think about them anymore. But now standards are helping us to look at how we can help. We're thinking of the whole student. Where are they going? What kind of career can they have? Even if they're in the low-level ESL class and it'll be another 2 years before they get out from different levels in ESL and move into other places, can I help them can I challenge them? Can I help them? Can I give them academic skills they'll need later? It's not just about learning English anymore. It's really developing skills and strategies to be able to be successful in life. So we have all sorts of standards that we've talked about, and we're going to go over those in a minute, but especially preparation and career readiness. So we really want to be thinking about that as well. Number 4, the whole student. We're no longer thinking about just the student as this is similar to the last one, but we're no longer thinking of the student as just this individual that we'll forget about. We want to keep track of the student. We want to be thinking about how they can become lifelong learners. Forever they're going to be learning. That's the best way to teach, is to help our students to take that responsibility and be lifelong learners. And we share that responsibility together. Number 5, academic and career goals. Our instruction, no matter the subject matter, should help students learn lifelong skills that they will need to be successful in schools and in career. So what are those lifelong skills? We're going to talk about those today as we develop those. But some of those are the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creative thinking. So we'll be talking about those today and what that really means. A lot of times we talk about these things, but we don't really concentrate on what does it mean to be a creative thinker? What does it mean to be a critical thinker? These things, and even communication. What is real communication in the classroom? And are we really helping our students to become this lifelong whole student? And is this a job of not only the teacher and the student, but the institution as well? So all together, we're working together to do this. In the last several years, we've had a lot of standards. When Staci and I first wrote Standout, that was in 2001 as the first publication, but in 1999 when we started writing, there were just a couple standards out. SCANS, some of you may know that, the Secretary's Commission on Achieving Necessary Skills. That was something in the United States that they put together a committee to find out what employers wanted in good teaching. So what they wanted from their employee, I'm sorry, not in good teaching, but what they wanted from their employees. What were the skills that they needed? It didn't matter if they knew how to use a cash register. What they wanted to know was how they were able to communicate, soft skills. How are they able to communicate, work with other people? What was the best and most important things that they saw in their employees? And that was SCANS. That came out in 1992. But then later, that was for workplace. But it always bothered me that it was about workplace because all those skills were needed everywhere. So we incorporated it in every unit and Standout. We had it as many places as we could have it. And then Equip for the Future, EFF, came out, and EFF was about the whole person. So we start moving that direction to it's not just getting into the job, but it's actually being the whole person. And then 21st century skills came at the turn of the century. And finally, there's some employability skills that are around. We have College and Career Readiness standards. We talked a little bit about that's to help us prepare academically for school and to get careers. No longer is it entry-level jobs. It's actually careers. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to help our students to be prepared for and ready for. English language proficiency standards helps us to use the College and Career Readiness standards. They give us a better image of what our students are and what their needs are. And of course, in the United States, we have CASAS, which is an assessment tool that we use. And again, these academic skills are very, very important. And the standards also help us evaluate and standardize the levels of our students. So these are all great and important things that we can do.
Someone in the chat's asking, what do we consider 21st century skills?
Well, there was a partnership for 21st century skills. There was a group of people that got together that put together standards, just like SCANS, Secretary's Commission on Achieving Necessary Skills, and they put that together. You can Google that and find the information. It's a substantial chart. We're going to show you some of the things that we're going to go right into that in just a second. We're going to show you some of those things in the 21st century skills, so you get a kind of an image of what all of this is about. But 21st century skills includes the 4 C's that we talked about. One of the things that I think is interesting is when the 21st century skills came out, the main thing that everybody took from that was, hey, technology, because it was the turn of the century. Technology, of course, is super important, one of the most important things that we can incorporate in the class. Digital literacy, we want our students to be able to communicate through lots of different means, including the computer and the internet. There's lots of other opportunities for them to learn through different ways. But as they came out, there was such an emphasis on 21st century, on technology, that the Partnership for 21st Century said, wait, we want to make sure you don't lose track of those 4 C's. And so today we're specifically talking about those, but there are some others, and we're going to show you a little chart here of how they all relate. One of the things, before I show the chart, one of the things that I hear a lot from teachers is, you've got so many of these standards. How do we keep them all straight? How do we know what we're supposed to do and how we do it when we have to learn all of these different standards? So what I like to do is put them all together and see what they have in common. So Staci's going to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so if you look at the chart here, we put up, you can see the SCANS, which were from 1992. You can see EFF from 2000, the 21st century skills from 2002, and then a more recent employability skills framework. So what we want you guys to do is look across the board at all 4 of the lists and see what they have in common. So if you guys can just type in some words about what you see that all 4 of these have in common.
Okay, communication, content, critical thinking. Good. Communication and critical thinking. Of course, technology, right? Interesting. Personality. Yeah, I think we could find that in if we dug deep. But we've got a lot of those these interpersonal skills, right? Thinking skills.
The 4 C's. Evelyn, you win. The 4 C's.
Okay, so we'll move on and talk about one of these at a time. All right, so this is our introduction to the 4 C's, but we wanted you to see how all of these things have things in common. And we have we have the College and Career Readiness standards in here too, in terms of our timeline. So we wanted you to be able to see how all of these interact. You don't need to spend a lot of time concentrating on on all of these different standards when they all have so many things in common, and that's what we're moving towards.
Yeah, it's important not to get overwhelmed every time they come out with new standards and think, oh gosh, now I've got to work on this with my students. What we want you to see is that every time new standards come out, they're just kind of refining them. And what you'll notice, and we're going to show you, is that they all have many things in common. So the first one we're going to talk about is communication. And communication is a basic skill we're considering under SCANS. And you'll see that it showed up in all 3 of the other lists. So communication, one of the 4 C's. So here's an activity we want you to look at. This is from Standout. This is from Standout Book 2. And we want to show you what contrived communication looks like. And contrived maybe sounds like a bad word. It's not. Contrived communication activities are necessary They help with the scaffolding, getting us to the real communication activities. So let's look at this activity. Students are learning about different containers that hold food, or different ways that you can categorize food. And then there's a shopping list, and then there's a conversation, a dialogue that's given to them, and they have to substitute the word. So Rob and I are going to do this a couple times just so you can see contrived communication.
So I get to be Augustine. You can be Sylvia.
I'll be
okay?
Sylvia.
All right, all right. Do you need any, let's say, do you need any flour at the store?
Yes, we need some flour.
How many bags do we need?
We need, oh, I need glasses. We need 2 bags.
Oh, very good. Okay, so you've all done this activity before. Everybody's done these dialogues before. They're not bad. We're not saying that they're bad. Although we say contrived, they're not bad. They're a great scaffolding to other things. The ELP, the English Language Proficiency Standard, says we need to go beyond just the English Language Proficiency Standards talks a lot about us giving scaffolding, helping our students to prepare for real communication and real collaboration. So that's what we're doing here. All right.
Okay, so you saw a more contrived communication, and now this is an example of more authentic communication. So if you look at the I activity, it says plan. You're planning a party for 20 people in a group, making a shopping list on a separate piece of paper. So we're not giving the group a dialogue. The group has to work together and talk about what this party's like, what kind of people are coming to this party, what kind of food do they want to serve, and then they can work on their shopping list. So this is a more real life, authentic situation that we are all faced with in life. And so the whole point is that we want you to make sure that you're all taking your students from the more dialogue, contrived communication activities into the activities where they actually have to do some real, authentic communication.
So for example here, this is different than the last activity, right? And yet they both have something to do with communication. So how are they different? How is this one different than the previous one? What do students have to do in this one that they don't have to do in the previous one? Go ahead and type something up. Let us know what you think. How is this activity different than the dialogue? Yeah, they need to use your imagination. Creativity
Yes.
too. There's another C for you, right? It's less guided. It's task-based. It's more about production. Great. Critical thinking. There is some critical thinking and collaboration. Absolutely.
Less controlled. Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually using all the C's as we do this, right? And
reach an agreement. I like that, Erica. Yeah, they have to reach an agreement, come to a consensus, and that's a real life situation.
right. So it's not that the dialogue is not a good idea. Those dialogues are great, but they lead us or prepare us to have our students do this. In Standout, we have these activities in every lesson and every unit all the way through because we think it's so important that our students are doing this. It's often an application of the lesson. In this case, the lesson is that we want our students to make a shopping list. And so at the end, they're making this shopping list, but they're doing it and they're demonstrating for themselves and for the teacher that they can actually have a real life discussion. So it's not contrived anymore, it's authentic. And if we don't give our students authentic communication tasks every lesson, then we're doing them a disservice. They really could learn a lot more. I'm a jazz musician and play the saxophone. And people ask me all the time, well, what makes jazz different? And I could come up with some great explanations like, well, there's syncopation and you can make any song into jazz. But to me, and this is just my own personal feeling, I know it's not everybody will agree with this, but to me, jazz is only jazz if there's improvisation, where the player has to create on the spot spontaneously. And it's the same way with communication. If we have real spontaneous communication, that is what we're looking for. And the students have to gain confidence that they can do it. And if we just say, okay, do this dialogue and then go out in the street and start talking, they won't have the confidence to do it. But if we allow them first to practice it in class and have real life type activities in class, then they'll be able to go out beyond class and be able to do it. All right.
Okay, so now we're going to go on to the second thing that all of these have in common. Critical thinking. We talked about that, one of our 4 C's, and Rob and I are really, really big on critical thinking. So let's do a task and then we'll talk about it. And hopefully you guys can read this. It might be a little small, but this is a critical thinking task where we're going to ask you to look at the meals of 5 different people and tell us who you think has the best or the healthiest diet. And this is just based on one day. So go ahead, spend a few minutes and look at that. And go ahead and type your responses or your guesses in the chat box.
And say because. So you think so-and-so has the best nutrition because. So we have an idea of what you're thinking. People are really
Multiple attendees are typing.
Yes, we
can't
have a
wait.
lot of ideas. Here we go. Okay, Rosa, because there's very little processed food. None of these are great meals, by the way. We know that. And that gives us an opportunity to talk more about
Different
it.
variety of healthy foods. Rosa, less meat. Interesting. Interesting. Hard to read. Rosa has a balanced diet. Anyone? Sylvia. You think Sylvia is more balanced than Rosa? Okay. Augustine, because there's protein and salad.
Very good.
Okay. Let's see.
Aha, Rosa. Okay, one of the great things about this activity is it's open-ended. So there's no wrong answer. So congratulations, everybody. You got it right. Because there's no wrong answer.
Yeah, but the great thing about it was all the discussion. I mean,
Yeah.
we're chatting online and it's not the same as in your classroom, but everyone has something to say about why. Someone said that Rosa had less meat. I would say that a diet with more meat is healthy. So you're going to have vegetarians, you're going to have vegans, and so you're going to have great discussion, and the students are required to think critically. Now, you've already worked with them on foods and healthy foods and foods that are unhealthy and a balanced diet. So this is a great exercise. Now, you can see if you look at the exercise that for exercise E, they actually have to rank. Sorry, I keep getting distracted because I want to read all the chat and I'm trying to talk at the same time. Yes, keto dieters. But they have to rank in order who they think has the best diet to the worst. So as a group, we're actually requiring them to come to a consensus, okay, which means lots of negotiation, lots of discussion, lots of critical thinking. And that's what this activity is all about.
Yeah, so you can imagine your students doing this activity. And every group will come up with, not every group, but many groups will come up with different answers, which is great because you have this discussion. But coming to consensus is really about critical thinking. So we kind of have a feel for what critical thinking is, but maybe we should talk just a little bit more about it.
Okay, so we want you to think for a second about what critical thinking is. And we're not asking for a super long, complex definition with tons of commas and conjunctions. We just want a simple phrase. Critical thinking activities are tasks where students what? What do you think? How would you define critical thinking tasks? Tasks where students go beyond reality.
Express themselves.
Find ways of decision making. Have to analyze the questions.
Evaluate choices. I didn't say that well, but evaluate choices.
Synthesize information. Defend their opinion. Think outside the box.
Yeah, these are good.
Yeah, these are great. You guys are good. You guys can do this presentation next time.
Some people like to give long answers when we ask this question, and they'll put commas and commas and commas and but all the way through. So it's like a paragraph, but it's only one sentence. You guys are doing great. I think because You can, oh yeah, Bloom's taxonomy, good.
Connect knowledge to real life. Okay, so our definition is so simple. Our definition of critical thinking are tasks that require learners to think deeper than the superficial meaning and vocabulary. That's it. A lot of people will say, oh, but I've got really, really low level students and they're just learning English. They can't do critical thinking. Not true. We wanted the definition to be so simple that a low level ESL instructor could walk into the classroom and teach critical thinking. So for example, back to food. If I put a bunch of food out on the table, we can talk about the name of everything. We can pick it up. This is an apple. This is flour. This is milk. Then to make it a critical thinking activity, I would have my students put them in categories, okay? Vegetables, fruit, meat, dairy. That's a way for them to go beyond the superficial vocabulary and meaning, okay? There's tons of things you can do with food, but we want you to realize that critical thinking isn't just for intermediate or advanced language learners. It's for all language learners.
And somebody mentioned every activity. Absolutely. You can make every activity critical thinking. And that's so important. So we really want to stress that. I'll give you an example of a higher level one. Let's see if this is a crazy example. John, I'm going to tell you a story and then I'm going to ask you some questions, okay? Some that are not so critical thinking and then others that are critical thinking, okay? So I'd like you to answer these questions for me real quickly. First, the story. John Smith lives in Canada. He is married. He has 100 cats and he's getting 3 more and he is happy. All right, so my question to you, let me ask the easy yeah, I know, it's a great story, isn't it? It's not true, by the way. But let me just ask you a couple questions. Okay, so first of all, what's the guy's name? John Smith. Oh, you love John Smith already. Excellent. Okay, so you have John Smith. All right, so tell me, how many cats does he have? Very good. You guys are fast.
Star students.
Star students. Okay, let me ask you. Does he like cats? Yes, yep, yes, yes. We don't know.
It seems like it.
Yeah, I never said he likes cats. So how do you know he likes cats? There's 3 pieces of information I gave you that you can use as evidence to say that you know he likes cats. So what are those evidence? That's right, we're inferencing. So what are the 3 things that we know that proves to us or helps us to infer?
Okay, he has 100, wants 3 more.
Okay, that's 1. Well, okay, that's 2.
He was happy.
And he's happy, right? So I mean, he could have 100 cats, and his wife's making him get 3 more, and he doesn't like them at all. But we said he's happy. So those 3 pieces of information help us infer. Now, on a much more complex way, we need to include that in our readings. We need to be able to pull out information from our from readings. We need to identify, for example, the author's intent. We need to be able to make conclusions about things that we don't see. Where is the evidence for that in the text? We need to be able to identify those things. So you can see how pulling this all together is a great way to use critical thinking. In the United States, CASAS will be coming out with a new reading test soon. We're not sure exactly when. We thought it was going to be earlier, but soon they'll be coming out with a new reading test for those of you that use CASAS, and it will have a lot more inferences. College and Career Readiness Standards incorporates a lot encourages a lot of inferencing. So we want to have that inference in our teaching. That's just another way to use critical thinking.
So you saw the middle page of this lesson. Don't worry, I know this is small, you can't see it. It's not really that important that you can actually read the text. But what we wanted you to see is that, so this was if you look at the middle page, that was the critical thinking exercise that we did. But we wanted you to see how in a 3-page lesson, this is actually a real lesson from Standout, 3 pages. We wanted you to see that there's tons of critical thinking, not just in the last activity where you're asking them to apply. So if you look at the first page, you'll see they're doing some interpreting and then they're classifying. And then we already did that middle page where they're going to rank. And then if you look on the third page, they're going to compare. You can see the Venn diagram where they're comparing the different diets. And then they actually have to do an application. And all of those activities involve critical thinking. So we want you to start thinking about, if you're not already, incorporating critical thinking into your whole lesson, not just one little activity here and there, but there's so many ways that you can make an activity critical thinking, even if it isn't already. And all it takes is going further than that superficial vocabulary and meaning.
That's right. Very good. Thank you.
Bye, Evelyn. I'm guessing she has to leave. So
Okay. Take care, Evelyn.
okay, so here are some examples of critical thinking activities. You saw a few that we already did, but there's tons. Here's some of them. These aren't all of them. Analyzing data, classifying, collaborating, comparing using a Venn diagram or Johari squares or charts, having students define concepts, evaluating information with a rubric, individually solving problems, predicting outcomes, ranking, reaching consensus, summarizing concepts. And most of these activities can be done with a very low level group, very simply, or made more complex for an intermediate or an advanced class. So here are some visual ideas of visual images of critical thinking, ways that you can do critical thinking.
So a lot of times, for example, in your class, if you're teaching in a class and you look at your students and say, they don't seem very engaged, or maybe I've been talking too much. How can I take what I'm doing now and make it into more critical thinking right on the spot? And you can do that. You can draw a graph on the board. You can have a class poll. You can ask them a question. You can bring critical thinking into every class. That's so important. So we've already talked about communication, and we've talked about critical thinking. Those first two C's are so important, because if we don't have those in every class, we are not really meeting the needs of our students, because we want them to be able to go out and, as our mission statement says, be lifelong learners. We want them to be successful. We want them to be able to do things without asking the teacher, without going back and saying, hey, I need your help. But we're happy to help, but we want them to be able to think on their own. So another thing that these things have in common, as we talk about the 4 C's, interpersonal skills. In EFF, interpersonal skills, that's not a C, right? Collaboration is the C. But they're all the same, interpersonal skills. And in these type of activities, we want the students to learn to work together, to achieve things together. So we should talk just a little bit about what we mean when we say collaboration. So before we actually talk about this slide, I'm wondering, do you have a definition for collaboration? Can anybody share with us, and all of you, can you share with us what you think collaboration is? I've asked this question before, and sometimes I get interesting answers. So let's just see if you have what you think. Again, we talk about these things all the time, but we don't necessarily think about what they mean. Google Classroom is wonderful in blend space.
I think they're having another conversation.
Oh, you're having another conversation. All right.
Working together, teamwork, working together to achieve a goal.
Negotiate meaning in groups.
Share their ideas, work together, sharing ideas and respecting others' opinions. Great.
All right, good. So let's look at this activity in Standout. And this one we call contrived, right? And the reason we call it contrived, well, what do you think? We're not saying that this is necessarily true collaboration. So what do you think? Why is this not true collaboration? It's a great activity. It's something you need. Again, it's scaffolding. But why is this real collaboration?
Why is it
not
contrived?
Real? Yeah, why is it contrived? Thanks, Stacy. Okay, these are some examples of how we can plan a trip would be one, but why is this activity not necessarily completely collaboration? What do we got?
Looking for facts.
One-way sharing. I like it.
Yeah, these questions are picked out.
Just
answering basic questions.
Right. So there's something missing. here. And I think that you're catching on to what we're talking about. So let's just look. Here's another example. This is real, we call this real communication. How is this different than the last activity? So here it says in a group, write a classified ad. Answer these questions in your ad. How much is the rent? How many bedrooms, etc. So there's similar questions to the ones we just saw, but it's a little different. So how is this different? All right, we have, they are creating, good. The goal is more apparent. There is a reason, right? There's a purpose. They're working together to achieve a goal. So that's good.
You have to come to
solving.
an agreement. Good. Consensus.
Right.
Great. Negotiate, persuade.
So you can see again, this is real collaboration. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about real collaboration. Sharing is great. Nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's wonderful scaffolding, but it's not the only thing. What we need to see is that students are actually working together. And there's a lot of ways. I saw someone say that some people, one person might dominate in a conversation. That's another workshop, but we can talk about that a lot. There's lots of ways to do that. And we're going to show you one example of how we can get all the students to participate in these type of activities. But if you're doing these 4 C's, you're actually building community in the classroom, because you're having all of these different things. They're working together on critical thinking, collaboration, creative thinking, and critical thinking. They're building this community. And once they do that, they're not afraid to share with one another and to help one another and to work together. And so you'll see that the quality of your collaboration, your students' collaboration, will be that much better. Here is something that we do in Standout. Let me make it a little bigger for you. In Standout, at the end of every unit, we have projects. So project-based learning is absolutely important and really necessary, especially because it is evidence-based, and we are trying to get our students to accomplish things. This is definitely collaboration. It's also, there's creativity in this as well. So creativity is our 4th C, and this becomes super important. Here in Standout, at the end of our unit, we have an application for the unit. Most project-based learning, PBL, is designed so students learn as they're doing a project. That takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. You have to worry about getting your curriculum in. That's wonderful if you can do it. In Standout, we prepare the students and help them to get all the tools and skills they need to be able to achieve this plan, this project, and then they present it to the class. So everybody in the group has a responsibility. But instead of, like maybe some of you have done in university or other places, you've worked in a group and you've tried to, you say, okay, you go do this, and they go home and do that. You go do this, and you go home and do that. In the Standout projects, they all work together. It's just the different people lead different parts of the effort, so they can do that. So that's really important. All right, so let me show you, when they do this, we give them tools to do this, because they're going to have a physical project, usually a physical project. Sometimes they're doing interviews and other things, but or it's a role play, but almost always it's a physical project. So we have worksheets. There's over 2,000 worksheets in Standout online. Students, they're in Word format, so students can, or teachers can change them around, put student names in, all sorts of different things. Here are some examples of some of the worksheets that come with this particular project. In this project, students are they have only $150, and they're supposed to, in a group, decide what they're going to eat for a full week, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a family. So they become a family, this group. And we have somebody that is the chef and someone that is the shopper. We have someone is the leader of the group who makes sure everybody speaks English and participates. We have a spokesperson that prepares the presentation. Then the students come up in front of the class and they present. Can you see how all of this is so helpful? Because you're using the 4 C's all the time when you're doing projects. So these projects take, usually we like you to use 2 days to do a project. but you can do it in a day if you decide. You can do it as an activity as well, but it's so much more meaningful when you give them an opportunity to try to speak authentically, communicate authentically, work in a cooperative team to help each other to achieve a goal, to be creative and come up with new ideas that no other group has. Those are all really important things. And as they're doing this, of course, they're using their critical thinking skills. So these are our 4 C's all together. So think about this for a minute. This was one project where they had to plan meals for a week. What are some other projects you could do in your class? Why don't you give us some ideas? Go ahead and type in the chat box.
Plan a trip.
Good.
Great. Create a book. What kind of book? Remember, you wanted to be specific content that you were working with in a unit.
Oh, created a cookbook.
A cookbook.
Great.
Great. A broadcast. Advertisement for a product. Excellent. That's one of those that we do in Standout. Oh, a movie script.
I like that.
Yeah.
Then you
that's
could
great.
actually perform the movie. That
Right.
would be really great.
Planning a diet. Great.
You did it this
I
morning.
did it this morning.
Yeah.
House to rent and then creating a budget. Great.
These are great ideas.
Yeah, you guys, great ideas. I think we have some project-based learning people in this
Yeah,
in this
absolutely.
chat room.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay, we're going to show you a list of some team projects that are in Standout.
So here are some of the ones that we do. And these are the books. So Standout has 6 levels, basic through book 5. And there's 8 units in each book. So our students, now sometimes you don't have time to do them all. You might do every other one, but it's really important that you do them. Projects really can help. And these team projects take away that idea that you have to spend the whole semester doing it. You can do it in just a few days. Although some of your projects you could do over a long period of time. That's wonderful. Those are all great ideas. These are just some others. Do you see any that you think would be good to use in your class? Why don't you, anything that really stands out to you that you like?
Standout.
I
Good
know,
one.
yeah, that was a plug. That's our book. So community health pamphlet. Yeah, that's always fun to do. Stacy's did that in her class. Job application portfolio. We did that in my class. Dream home.
Dream home.
Sure. I wish I knew what was on page
47.
Standout 4, but I just don't have it all, every page memorized. Actually, I'm using Standout 4 right now, and we're doing those projects. Run for mayor. Good.
Uh-oh, Hamid. I don't read Arabic. Start a company. Great. Run for mayor. Great. Yeah, that's a good one that we do near the end. Obviously, you can see that as the if you look at the, I put my finger up there like you could see my finger. These are in order, so you can see that they're a little simpler and may get a little more complex as the semester goes along.
Yeah, and in Standout we have the 8 units. So we have interpersonal skills or personal identification, and we have financial unit, and we have a unit on food, and we have a unit on housing, and we have a unit on community. We have a unit on health and on work, and then on goal setting and also citizenship. And they're a little different in each book, but you get a kind of an idea of how these all work together. Let's just show you a couple examples. So here's one. One of the things that I want to stress here when we're doing these team projects is that this comes from the students, and it's an application. Unless the students ask me, I don't correct them. And that's because this is their own. I want them to own this. I don't want them to feel like I interjected so much that it becomes my project. This is their project. So here's an example of a brochure that they did. In this particular project, they also made a city map of a make-believe city that they created. They were part of a group, and in this group, they had to plan a new city, kind of like Brasilia in Brazil. was a planned community, and they had competitions to see who had the best plan. And then they the government chose a plan, and then they built Brasilia in Brazil. So I just love this one, and I'm going to go ahead and read it because I like it. But this is Cartoon City. Cartoon City is a small city. There are 3,000 people in our city. We have 300 houses, 500 apartments, and a mobile home place. We have also amusement park. Its name is Toontown. This is beginning high from book 2. Many peoples like our city because fun for peoples. The climate here is beautiful. It is sunny every day. The streets in our city are interesting. We have Toon Street, Looney Avenue, Superman Street, and Spider-Man Boulevard. Please come to our city. We have big hotel and many tourists. So if you look on the other side, you'll see the jobs that they had. Each of them had a job. The mayor made sure everybody spoke English and participated. The city planner was the one responsible for designing the map, but everybody worked together. So this is different than you might do in university because everybody's working together. It's just that Marissa Hernandez was the one that was in charge. Publicity specialist, that's where the brochure came from. And the spokesperson was Leticia Bravo, and she helped prepare the class presentation. It doesn't mean that she did all the speaking. Everybody spoke, and she just helped prepare it. Here's a couple others. This is from Staci's class.
Yeah, two of these. The first one on the left was in the very beginning. They had to come up with a goal, and we learned about goal setting. We also talked about obstacles and solutions. So they had to come up with a goal, and they had to write out what their steps would be to accomplish that goal, what were their obstacles, and then they also had to write down some time management strategies. So then this was I don't want to say back in the day before computers because it wasn't, but in my class, we didn't have access to computers, so we did everything in class. You can see that ad on the right. This was in a consumer unit, and they had to make an ad, which was something that you guys were talking about. So they had to make an advertisement for a refrigerator in this case.
Very good, very good. Okay, so we're going to show you another one. This is from my beginning high class from years ago again. Now I have computers. I have the opportunity to have computers, but this is an older one. But I have my students doing all sorts of different work on the computers, especially the goal one Staci just showed you. I have that particular level now, and we do all of that on the computer. They do a PowerPoint. It's great. This is designing a clothing store. They have to put their inventory together. They did pictures. They talk all about it. These projects, we get a lot of reports from teachers that just love these projects. And if you do them, you will see the students get that opportunity to use the 4 C's on a regular basis. So that's.
I want to answer a question real quick.
Okay.
Patricia's saying, to clarify, you suggest not to make corrections. As Rob said, this is a culminating project at the end of a unit for us, end of usually a 2 or 3 week unit. And at this point, we really want the students to work together and make this their own. So Rob and I both agree and believe that we don't correct their work on these projects. If they came up and asked us a grammar question or something specific, we would tell them the correct answer, of course, but it's not something that they turn into us and that we correct and give back to them.
Very good. All right. So Staci, why don't you tell them just a little bit more about the books?
Okay, a couple people have been asking about Standout, and I think Joy will pop on in a little bit and give you some more information. But it's a, as Rob said, it's a 6-level series. It's a student book with a print workbook. There's multi-level worksheets. There's an online workbook as well as a presentation teaching tool for the teachers. And there's also videos, which if we had more time to show you, we would, because the videos are wonderful to go along with the series.
Yeah, maybe we should do a webinar on the videos one day. There's all sorts of different things that you can do with Standout, and we're really happy to have been here and to help you. We have a few minutes for questions if you'd like to ask us some. But we want to stress to you that we're going to turn to the next slide so you can see our email, so you can certainly email us if you would like and ask us any questions. We are excited to be teachers in this field. It is the most rewarding thing I could ever imagine doing, seeing students learning and being able to give them opportunities to learn. And the 4 C's is really a great secret, plus the 5th one, confidence. As we do these things, we are helping our students to gain confidence. If we stand in front of the class and do most of the talking, our students don't get an opportunity to gain confidence. This is how it works. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We'll try to answer a couple of them. We won't be able to answer everybody.
Repeat the 4 C's.
Okay, the 4 C's are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creative thinking. And then we add our 5th C, which is confidence. All right, so that's good. Any other questions? Okay, so there's some technical questions about CDs. Yes, we have CDs, but we encourage people to use the online audio. Also, there's the presentation tool, a classroom presentation tool that has the audio and video. It's on a flash drive. You just plug it into the computer, and then you can broadcast that, and it has the audio and the video all there, and the entire book is there. All right, let's see.
You're welcome. All of you saying thank you. It's been our pleasure to be here. So it's been fun collaborating with you guys.
Yes, I see
this morning.
I see there's a question about learning skills, literacy skills, and life skills. Yes, those are all 3 different things, but they all interrelate, and the idea would be to put them all together into one. As we do using life skills, they're learning literacy skills because we're doing reading and writing and listening and speaking. And as they're learning those reading and writing skills especially, then they're absolutely getting opportunities to use those 4 C's.
I want to jump in real quick. Yes, this is being recorded and you can access it after. And then someone's asking about heterogeneous classes.
Well, all our classes are heterogeneous. I'm just going to make sure I was going to say it right.
I know.
Our heterogeneous.
Yeah, all of our classes are.
So
we teach in English all the time. Because we have students that speak languages that we don't. So our classes are always mixed. So yes, this works it actually works better if your classes are mixed.
That's right.
In my opinion.
All right, very good. Well, again, thank you. I interrupted you saying goodbye.
That's okay. No, that's okay. I wanted to answer that question last, but I think, Joy is saying that all the slides will be up on the website as well as the recording if you want to refer back to it and share it with people.
Oh, and also somebody said, please explain more about PBL. There is a webinar that I did that is in the archives that you can watch with National Geographic on PBL that goes through all of these things that we talk about in an hour instead of just a few minutes.
Yes, thank you both. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Staci. Thank you for your time today. That was an awesome presentation. And yes, the slides and the recording will be available on the website. And if you attended and you were here and present, we will be in touch about a certificate. I see someone asking about getting credit. So we will be in touch. Thank you so much. And you will have more information about the book as soon as you close the webinar. It will open on your screen. So thank you so much, and thank you, Rob and Staci. We appreciate you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.